What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Roundball Stew. I'm Dan Titus, joined as always with my boy, Raphielle Johnson. We got a lot of stuff to talk about. It's week 18, All-Star weekend. Interesting how this team has gone on this surge, and really there hasn't been that many fantasy-relevant players to pick up as a result of it. It's really just been the main guys of Giannis and Drew Holiday leading the charge here. But yeah, what are your thoughts on this win streak, and do you think the Bucks are the team to beat in the East?
I don't know, because they had to go to overtime with a Boston team that was down
Had nobody.
4 starters. Robert Williams was on some sort of minutes restriction where he only played 13 minutes. Basically, Joe Mazzulla was like, yeah, because I felt like it. It's almost like when you ask your parents why they did something. You know, it's like, I pay the bills around here. I felt like it. That's basically what his explanation was for that.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I don't know. I think they're definitely in the conversation. You know, when you have one of the best players in the world, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Drew Holiday's an outstanding guard. We still haven't seen Chris Middleton in full force, still kind of managing his minutes. So, yeah, I think they're definitely in that conversation with Boston. You know, I think Denver deserves that respect. Obviously, we'll touch on Phoenix a little bit later in the show. Some of the teams that made some big moves at the trade deadline kind of worked themselves in the mix. I think this is probably going to be as open of a run to the NBA title as we've seen in quite some time.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely in the Eastern Conference. I was surprised to see the Bucks didn't do more at the deadline. Let's see how Jay Crowder kind of fits in there long term. But, you know, they still got Pat Connaughton. I expected Grayson Allen to maybe be on the move, do something to bolster their perimeter defense. But, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this shakes out here. Boston still, I think, is the team to beat when they're fully healthy. Sixers, we know that they're not real when it comes to the playoffs. So those are the main teams I'd be looking out for in the East. But, you know, the Western Conference is going to be a bloodbath second half of this season here. Zion Williamson suffers another setback, hamstring injury. He's probably going to be out for another month. What are you doing with Zion? I've seen some talk on Twitter of people dropping him in shallow leagues because they don't have the ability to hold him much longer. Yeah. I'm still holding on to him because you might be able to get him in the playoffs, but can you even rely on him in the fantasy playoffs with him probably going to be having a minutes restriction upon his return?
Yeah, I think in shallow leagues, you have to strongly consider dropping him if you can get good value on your waiver wire, just because, like you said, it's probably going to be on a minutes restriction once he returns, whenever that time is. And we're talking about a soft tissue injury in terms of the hamstring. Those can be tricky for anyone, much less someone like Zion. So I'm really concerned. I think in standard leagues, you hold on for a bit longer before we get like a concrete update. That should probably come after the All-Star break. Yeah. But shallow leagues, I think it may be about that time.
And what are you doing about LeBron? Are you concerned? After he broke the record, there's been some talk of him having a foot injury, potentially playing too many minutes. Are you concerned at all? Like, I personally don't think there's much there, especially after they make a move to acquire 4 players at the deadline to make this push. I think he'll be fine. If he needs to get off-season surgery for whatever he's dealing with, you know, he'll take care of it then.
Yeah, I think it's tough. I think he's going to ultimately play through it whenever that time comes, just because we've gotten so used to that. Can't tell you how many times he's been on the injury report because of left ankle soreness, ultimately to play. So it's been a bit jarring from a fantasy standpoint to see him sit out these last couple of games. I think he's going to be back Wednesday night, so that will definitely help people who have him rostered. But, yeah, there really isn't someone on that Lakers roster you can pinpoint and say, I need to pick him up with LeBron out in terms of the forwards that they have. Maybe a Rui Hachimura, since he's already been starting, if he's still available in your league. But beyond that, I don't know. I think Jared Vanderbilt's probably rostered in too many leagues as it is, just because of where he was in Utah. But, yeah, I don't really see there any alternatives for him right now.
Yeah, they definitely got a logjam at that 4 spot, and now that Mo Bamba's there, that kind of complicates things a little bit. I think they'll all have their time based on the matchups. I think that's going to be a really key thing for the Lakers. I think this is a way better real life basketball move than fantasy impact. But D'Lo, I think, will actually his value should still be all right, because I'm expecting him to at least get more opportunities to shoot on the perimeter. He's way better in the clutch than Russ. I don't know if I could say ever was, but definitely the recent version of Russ. And we'll talk about Russ in a little bit. And then just want to highlight some really good players over the course of the last 2 weeks. Jalen Brunson has been number 10 overall in per game value. Derrick White player of the week in the Eastern Conference has been ranked 24, and Markelle Fultz, 69. Nice. Over the last 14 days. I think out of all people, I think Jalen Brunson was probably on the highest on my snub list in terms of all-stars. I thought he's been better than Julius Randle in real life basketball, and recently definitely has been better than him in fantasy. So I love to see him kind of taking his game to the next level, improving it so that it won't give the media and the coaches the reason to skip on him next year. But Derrick White, give me your thoughts on him and what he's been doing for fantasy managers in the absence of, Jaylen Brown being out and also Marcus Smart battling his ankle injuries.
Yeah, he's been out. He's been huge, I should say. Those injuries have kind of kept him in the starting lineup, obviously. And then the usage has increased as well. So he's not just out there filling a space in the starting five. He's getting shots up, getting playmaking opportunities. He's been excellent. So you're getting that type of value from somebody on most nights before fifth in the pecking order. That's huge for a fantasy team.
Definitely. And Markelle Fultz, I just want to shout out because, he's getting the stocks, he's getting the assists, the rebounds. He actually looks like he's rounded into the player and the fantasy player that we expected. Cole Anthony hasn't really done much. Jalen Suggs has had a couple of flashes lately that's shown why he was such a high draft pick. But I think Markelle Fultz is really making a claim to actually be the point guard of this future Orlando Magic team that's going to be really fun and fantasy friendly going forward.
Yeah, they gave him that contract extension, which kind of covered the guys if he was on, play through injuries and what have you. But yeah, he does look like the future of that position. I think coming into the season, that was our question for Orlando fantasy-wise. Who is going to separate themselves? Jalen Suggs, between injuries and poor shooting, really didn't do much last season. Cole Anthony is currently injured, never been the most efficient player. Markelle may not shoot threes, but he's going to get you a respectable field percentage because of his shot selection and the defensive stats you mentioned as well. So it's been great to see, given how much he had to deal with early in his career. He's probably one of those candidates for comeback player of the year if they give out that actual award. So it's been great to watch Markelle kind of take off recently.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, man. And as a Sixers fan, I wish the best for him. Can't say the same for another former Sixers point guard that's been struggling. And maybe we'll talk about that in a little bit too. But let's talk about the trade deadline and the fallout from it. I think it's important there was tons of trades. I mean, second round picks just getting thrown around like candy to acquire players as this deadline. Never seen that before. I think it was a record like 50 something second round picks. But let's talk about the teams that actually have a fantasy impact. So first and foremost, got to talk about the Suns. They just acquired Kevin Durant for Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, Jay Crowder. Jay Crowder. Right. So that was just a crazy trade that I don't think anyone really was expecting right now. I think we talked about the week before. We were expecting him to get traded in the offseason. But what has that done for Josh Okogie and or potentially Terrence Ross, who's eventually going to be bought out and decide to join the Phoenix Suns?
Yeah, between Okogie and Torrey Craig, that's a situation where once they get Kevin Durant back, the fifth starter is going to depend on matchups. Monty Williams said as much on Tuesday. That makes it difficult from a fantasy standpoint in terms of which one you can kind of rely on full time, because one guy, Okogie may start one game and Craig the next. You don't expect either one to fall completely out of the rotation if they're coming off the bench, but they will take a hit in that reserve role. And you're largely left with a catch and shoot guy in that fifth spot. Okogie's never been a great shooter, so that's a bit concerning there, but you get the defensive stats with him.
Right. And I think that's what's making his mark right now with Monty Williams. Had very good things to say about just the way that he's stepped up his ability to attack the rim and attack the point of attack for defense. So he gives you a couple of different looks. And as you said, Torrey Craig had his spot, in the starting lineup when he was subbing in for Cam Johnson, who gave them another look kind of as a stretch four. Because he has ability to knock down the three-pointer. But, yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see what this team looks like with Kevin Durant there. They put up a monster lines last night between Booker and Chris Paul with 19 dimes and only like what? I don't think – did he have four turnovers? Ugh.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was a big game for him. But, this Suns team, man, there's no surprise that they're the odds-on favorite in the Western Conference, just with how much talent they have. But I do have questions about how their depth is going to kind of play out here, because they don't really have too much behind those elite starters there. Let's talk about the other side of that trade, the Nets, who got a ton of wings. I mean, this is the 3-and-D squad between Mikal Bridges, Dorian Finney-Smith. You still have Royce O'Neal there. Yeah. So out of all that, what are you doing from a fantasy perspective? Because we've seen Cam Thomas already go to a bench role. Yeah. What are your expectations going forward? Because I don't really know who to trust right now.
Yeah, I don't think you can. Like, the guys that you can trust are already rostered in the lion's share of leagues. Like, talk about Mikal Bridges. Cam Johnson and Dorian Finney-Smith started that game against the Knicks on Monday. I'd expect that's going to be your 2, 3, and 4 moving forward, with Claxton and Dinwiddie completing that 5. But yeah, I think Cam Johnson is going to be rostered in a lot of leagues already. I think if you're still holding on to Royce O'Neal, you're probably going to be looking for alternatives right now. He was still hovering at a little bit under 50% when he was starting. So, I think he takes a hit. I think Joe Harris takes a hit. If you need 3-pointers, you can still, I guess you can hold on to him in deeper leagues, but he's going to take a hit. Cam Thomas, I mean, unless he suddenly becomes like a defensive stalwart over the All-Star break, I think he's in trouble fantasy-wise, which is unfortunate given how hot he was as they were waiting for those trades to go through.
That's interesting. I added Dorian Finney-Smith in a couple spots just for his ability to shoot the 3, get some rebounds, and he's been shooting pretty well for the Nets thus far. But it's really the minutes that he's getting. I think he's going to be pretty comfortable getting 30 minutes a night. And if you're going to attack anyone of this rotation, I think that's what I would look for, is who's getting the minutes. And I think you're right, Cam Johnson. Curious to see how his fit continues to kind of formulate here in this new look Nets roster. One thing I can say for a fact, though, Ben Simmons, drop him everywhere you can. Yeah. That number's falling fast. Zach Lowe came out with a report saying they're going to try to look to move him in the offseason, but at this point, they're just not playing him because his confidence isn't there. That's pretty evident.
He doesn't fit either. Right?
And he doesn't. You're right.
As much. He's like, you play him. He needs the ball in his hands, but you need to account for that throughout the rest of the lineup. And there have been times, including recently, where they've used him as the backup center. Doesn't really work there either, because he's not going to be able to bang with the bigs that are coming off the bench for other teams. So, it's if you can con somebody into trading for him, go for it. I know that's not nice, but if you can do that, go for it. But otherwise, you got to drop him.
Yeah, he's just not going to get the minutes. And third center behind Day'Ron Sharpe, man. That's that's quite the substantial fall from grace. Let's talk about the other great big trade that happened with the Mavs acquiring Kyrie Irving. The interesting part about this dynamic is, like, it's not going to hurt either Luka or Kyrie. Like, I think that they've shown that they can play together already. Kyrie just phenomenal in the fourth quarter a couple of nights ago, dropping over 20 points in that fourth quarter to bring them back, and then ultimately a loss. But I think they'll figure it out. But Josh Green has really cemented himself as a starter, and I think that there's a lot of trust there with Jason Kidd. So do you trust his rest of the season outlook? Like, do you think he can actually hang in this starting lineup and provide value for fantasy managers?
I definitely do. First and foremost, who else are they going to play defensively? Like, he has to be out there. He's basically their best perimeter defender at this point. So that's going to get him 30 to 33 minutes per game minimum, I think. And he's been playing a bit more than that. The offensive game has expanded. You play off of two guys like Luka and Kyrie, you're going to have opportunities to score against a defense that may be scrambling. And he's taking advantage so far. I really believe in Josh Green. I think the bigger question would be the center position. Because of the defensive issues, you almost have to have Dwight Powell out there. We've seen JaVale McGee get limited run, which was more than what he was getting before. And Christian Wood, man, because he can't defend a chair. So it's like he'll give you 18. Yeah, he'll give you 18 to 20 points while he's out there. But if you're asking him to defend well in the two-man game, he just can't do it. So, which is probably also why he doesn't have a contract extension. But he's in a tough spot minutes wise for that reason.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping that the Dallas Mavericks would make a move to acquire someone in the front court to help with that, to bolster that defense. Because Christian Wood is just not it. But going back to Josh Green, he's only 39% roster in Yahoo League, so he's still widely available.
Yeah,
got to scoop him up, and he's the only knock on him that I see really is his free throw percentage, but you can live with that. He doesn't get a ton of volume, but he's been given points. He's been given the rebounds. He gets a steal in there. So it gives you the 3-pointers over the last 14 days. So yeah, I like Josh Green a lot. He definitely would be one of my priority ads as a result of this trade that went down. Going to the Lakers, talked about them a little bit. Let's talk about the Jazz side of things, because they offloaded quite a bit of depth in terms of Mike Conley going to the Timberwolves and Vando and Beasley going to the Lakers. What's been the fallout from that? It's really primarily, in my opinion, it's been Colin Sexton. He's been playing a lot better with those increased minutes. But I want to know, Talen Horton-Tucker, can you trust these assists? Are you buying it?
I look at him somewhat similar to Josh Green in that where else are they going to turn in terms of a backup playmaker role? So I'm not expecting high assist numbers, but I think he's in a position where you can trust him enough to have him rostered. Sexton, I don't know if I want to say that this is it for him, but this is his big opportunity to show that he can properly run a team and focus on getting everyone involved instead of just kind of going for his, as has been the case for much of his career. I think he's done a pretty solid job these last couple of weeks since taking over. But yeah, I think Talen Horton-Tucker, I'm trusting him just because of the situation.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I think that there's an opportunity for him to get minutes. I think he's going to be their sixth man right now. Mm-hmm. And so, like, he's generating not only the reason I like Talen Horton-Tucker is because there's nothing on that bench. Like, he's going to be the primary scorer on the second unit and facilitator. So I think there's a path for him to still have some fantasy viability there. And Sexton, you're right. I think he was more so painted as a scoring point guard than passing. But he has racked up 5 assists, at least 5 assists in his last 4 games. So you're right. Maybe this is the last ditch effort to figure out, can this guy be the point guard of the future? I think it's interesting watching him next to fellow Chucker Jordan Clarkson. But I think that those true point guard opportunities are really going to be spread amongst Sexton, Clarkson a little bit, as well as Talen Horton-Tucker. But yeah, Horton-Tucker, I think you could definitely keep around for a little while. Are you gonna say something?
No. I was just nodding.
Okay. Let's go to the Clippers. Oh, wait, forgot to talk about Russ. So there's rumors that Russ is going to get bought out by the Utah Jazz, so he's not even going to be suiting up for them. I think that's probably likely, just given where they are in their scenario in the standings and their future of their roster. But could this be the last stop for Russell Westbrook? I mean, Billy Donovan reached out. Apparently the Bulls have interest. This man could be playing in China before we know it, man. Like, how many more stuffs can Russ have?
I don't think it'll get to that point, but you're right. I think it's a situation where we've seen a lot of great struggle, in terms of adjusting to the role that you may have excelled in for the prime of your career. It's not going to be there, at this point. Yeah. And I think in terms of Utah, he still hasn't decided what to do there. They're open to him staying if he wants to, but from reports that I've read, they've been clear about, there may be games where you don't play at all if you stick around, just because they want to look at the young guys. Chicago, I think if your goal is to contend for a championship, that would probably be a bad move, because I don't see that team really doing anything right now. I know some Clippers players have openly campaigned for Russ to join them, but I look at that roster. We'll probably talk about them in a minute here, but feels like there are too many cooks in that kitchen for him to kind of, get in there and make an impact. So I don't know what he's going to do. I'm interested to see, though.
Yeah, that's the struggle I have, is like there's this point of when, these all-star, all-NBA players, superstars hit this point where there's like, damn, I got to figure out a new role and how I'm going to fit into a new system. Carmelo Anthony went through it. Allen Iverson went through it. But some people are able to get to that. I don't know that Russ, I haven't seen it yet. I mean, I think he was definitely making a valiant effort for the Lakers to try to make it work.
Yeah.
It just didn't. So yeah, I'm curious to see what he decides to do, what his future is. But what do you do from a fantasy perspective? Do you drop him now because he doesn't fit in your IL spot? Now he's just taking up dead weight. We're at the end of the season here. Maybe just hold him through the All-Star break because maybe something happens after that. But like, what are you doing?
I think at this point, maybe hold him through the All-Star break, just see what news may come out. Obviously, the entire league is going to be in Salt Lake City. So there'll be opportunities for meetings and whatnot. So see what happens there. But yeah, I don't think if you don't really hear anything from that point on, it's time to drop him just because there's just way too much uncertainty there.
Right. You mentioned the Clippers. Let's talk about them. They no longer have John Wall or Reggie Jackson, both gone. They did acquire Bones Highland, which I thought was an interesting move for the future. Love that Ty Lue has an opportunity to kind of mold Bones Highland. Clearly, he wasn't getting along with leadership at the Denver Nuggets, so has another opportunity here. But I think that this is really, I don't know that we can. I think the first game was a pretty good indication. Terrence Mann is going to be playing point guard right now. He is a must roster for me as well. I'd say I'd probably put him up there in the Josh Green territory. And he's only 15% rostered in Yahoo leagues. That is extremely low considering that he's just lucked into 30 plus minutes and he can do a little bit of everything in terms of scoring, rebounding, and assists. Won't be super high assists, but he can get 5. So curious what your thoughts on him is. And then also, kind of how are you expecting that Eric Gordon Highland fit to kind of play out?
Yeah, they moved Mann into that starting role a few weeks back. And that was kind of your first sign that John Wall and Reggie Jackson were going to be gone. It wasn't working out with either one of them. So I agree with you. He should be picked up in more leagues heading into the All-Star break. What I found interesting about Tuesday's win over the Warriors is that the lineup they had on the court to kind of close that thing out was Eric Gordon, Norman Powell, Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, and Ivica Zubac. They obviously weren't out there the final 2.5 minutes because the job was done then. But that was the 5 they went with to kind of put those away. So I don't know if we spoke about this in a previous podcast, but maybe they're looking for someone who can kind of just handle those primary playmaker responsibilities for, say, 15 to 20 minutes of the first 3 quarters. And then the fourth quarter, just hand the keys to Paul and Kawhi and say, all right, you guys take us home. Yeah, that didn't work against Milwaukee, as we saw a few weeks ago. But, I mean, you can't really argue against betting on Paul George and Kawhi Leonard to figure it out. Yeah, that's what I would say. But, yeah.
That's a good point. Yeah, and how Eric Gordon kind of fits into that. I feel like he displayed playmaking abilities in his time in Houston. So I think that there is definitely some sharing amongst the starting lineup of those playmaking responsibilities. But I still think it's good that Mann is at least getting the opportunity in the first 3 quarters to do something. And then he also has some chemistry with the bench unit too. But Norman Powell's been playing great, so definitely need to keep him on the court in crunch time for sure. And what about Mason Plumlee? RIP to his fantasy stock going to the Clippers. But what do you think that does for Zubac? Like, do you think that? I mean, so far it doesn't seem like it's been a huge impact to him. But I think over the course of time, I think we'll see probably a little bit more Mason Plumlee eating into those minutes.
I'm not too concerned. I think obviously Mason Plumlee, I think in terms of the rebounding and defending is slightly better than Isaiah Hartenstein. I think that's just the effect they're looking for with that move. Getting a big who can help out with some of the playmaking, since obviously they don't have a traditional point guard. Hartenstein was really good in that 2-man game. They give him the ball in the high post, and he can pick some guys out. I think Plumlee can do a little bit of that, but I think the minute split will be fine for Zubac and what he brings you in terms of field goal percentage and rebounds and blocks. I think he's going to be fine fantasy-wise personally.
And are you dropping Mason Plumlee in deep competitive leagues? Yeah, I wouldn't either. Yeah, he gave you 8 points, 5 rebounds, and 3 assists off the bench in limited minutes. And now that he's hitting free throws, he doesn't really hurt you there. He could be that backbench deep big that you have to kind of throw out there and get some sneaky assists for the big man spot. So, yeah, I wouldn't drop him in deep leagues. Shallow leagues, you have my permission. You can feel free to drop them. Let's talk about the Rockets. KJ Martin to the moon. Now that Eric Gordon is gone, he's getting primarily all those small forward minutes. Are you stashing Tari Eason still?
I am personally. I know some people, saw the Raphael Stone's comments that he would still have to earn his minutes. So like, no kidding. Like any players, they have to earn their minutes. So I'm not worried about that at all.
Yeah.
I think he's going to get to a point where he can play 25, 28 minutes per game. And that's when you're really going to see him kind of take off fantasy-wise. So, yeah, I'm definitely stashing Tari Eason right now.
Have you been paying attention to Rockets Twitter that's just been complaining, abusing, disappointed? I don't know, every word you can think of for Jabari Smith Jr. and what he's not been showing from his ability to shoot lately. Do you think that there's risk of Tari Eason surpassing him? Because that's really where Tari Eason plays. He doesn't really get that many minutes at small forward, plays primarily at the power forward spot. Do you think there's a chance that Silas can shake it up, or do you think he's going to continue to just trot him out there and let him figure it out as he's hit that rookie wall?
Yeah, I think they're going to continue to put him out there. Like, you can't have the 3rd overall pick and just put him on ice. Like, this isn't a Golden State Warriors situation where they're trying to win championships. Therefore, James Wiseman didn't play much. What's Houston trying to win? Like, he has to play. So, yeah, I'm not too concerned about Jabari in terms of playing time. I am concerned about the shooting because that was supposed to be one of his strengths. And he got off to a slow start, rebounded a bit, and now we're back to where he was when the season started. The good news is that the All-Star break will give him some time to kind of step away and recharge the batteries.
Yes, it will. I mean, he needs it, man. He's been awful from 3-point range. Get into his spots a little bit in the 2-point game, but yeah, just overall, just not doing what fantasy managers want or expected to see. Last thing I wanted to talk about was Jakob Poeltl going to the Toronto Raptors. Damn, did he have a game, 30 points and 6 blocks the other night. A little bit concerned earlier about Precious Achiuwa and what potentially he could do going forward with Poeltl now there. Do you still have those same concerns? And also, do you see a role for Chris Boucher going forward? Because I feel like he's probably their most versatile bench player that can play multiple positions that shouldn't really be impacted too much by the Poeltl acquisition.
Yeah, I think we're going to eventually get back to what Toronto would hope in terms of Boucher and Achiuwa playing about 20, 23 minutes per game off the bench. Maybe take a slight hit fantasy-wise, but I think that would be best for them because you have Poeltl as your starting center at true center, as opposed to the other guys who are more like hybrid players. So once you get OG Anunoby back in the mix, Achiuwa would probably be coming off the bench. I think Gary Trent Jr. is probably going to come off the bench too when he returns, just because they need a big in that lineup. Poeltl's filled that. He's almost hit the ground running. Had some foul trouble in his Raptors debut, that second return to Toronto, I should say, but he was outstanding Tuesday night.
Yes, he was absolutely outstanding. But the Toronto Raptors a little bit shorthanded. Gary Trent Jr. has been on the shelf with an injury, and obviously you just talked about OG Anunoby with his wrist injury. How can people get to the latest injury information?
They can do that by downloading the RotoWorld app. You can stay ahead of the competition in your league. Favorite players in your fantasy roster, therefore you get updates directly to your phone as soon as news breaks. And, it's available in your preferred app store with Apple, Android, wherever.
All right, man. And some late last night news. I was watching the Portland Trailblazers game. Anthony Simons went down with a pretty nasty ankle injury. Yeah. Thankfully, the All-Star break is here, so he can get a week to kind of chill and work on the rehab. Mm-hmm. Dr. A was saying he expects him to miss a little bit of time, just given how ugly it looked. Haven't got an official report yet. Probably getting an MRI now. Are you picking up Shaedon Sharpe or Matisse Thybulle?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it kind of depends on what you need. Like, if you need defensive stats, I think Matisse Thybulle is going to be the guy to go with, because I think he's going to start even after they get Jeremy Grant back, who's also been out concussion protocols. That's why he started his first 2 games as a Blazer. What he gives them defensively, they don't really have from the other guys in that roster. And the fact that he's shot the ball with confidence and shot it reasonably well, they get 4 3-pointers on Monday.
Seriously.
That's a bonus that no one was counting on when he landed in Portland. But I think I would go with Thibault personally.
I'd say they also left him pretty open because he hasn't earned anyone's respect from the 3-point line. But he's gotten 4 steals in the first 2 games. So I definitely get it. And with all the injuries going on in Portland right now and them still trying to figure out, I mean, I should have probably thrown Cam Reddish in that hat too, because he's getting minutes now. He actually has an opportunity to play. Fool me once. I don't know that I could go back to the Cam Reddish, hype train. I feel like he's either going to get hurt or he's going to find some way to piss somebody off in the locker room to not earn minutes anymore. But Matisse Thybulle, stand-up dude, seems to really be liking being back in the Portland area. That's where he grew up. So, yeah, I mean, I'm leaning towards Sharp just because I liked what he said before as he left the dunk contest and ruined All-Star Weekend, potentially. He said he wanted to focus on the second half of the season. So I think he's really going to get some more minutes here and has an opportunity to show what he can do. Doesn't really do much outside of scoring, unfortunately, but we'll see if he can add any more to his tool belt there. Jaylen Brown fractured his face, orbital bone. He's going to be wearing a mask. For right now, I mean, I haven't heard too much in terms of a deadline, but I would expect he'd probably be back after the All-Star break. What do you know about Jaylen Brown and what he's going to be coming back?
Yeah, it's pretty much the same thing that I've heard. He'll be reevaluated during the break, and we'll find out then. But obviously, an injury like that, the good news is that no surgery was required. Yeah. So obviously, you break a bone in your face, that's pretty severe. But if you don't have to undergo surgery, that's a positive. He'll have some sort of protective mask on. I expect to see him back on the court when play resumes after the break.
And DeMar DeRozan, grade 1 strain of his thigh. Any fantasy fallout from that? Anybody you would pick up with DeMar DeRozan not playing as much? I would assume Alex Caruso, but he's still battling some injuries too. Yeah. So, yeah, there's not a clear winner here. Maybe Pat Williams.
If you want to believe in Pat Williams.
Another guy.
Yeah. He's had his moments. I'll be fair. I'll try to be fair with that regard. And he should have more opportunities to score. But I don't really believe in him enough fantasy-wise to kind of hop on that bandwagon.
Yeah, he's 32% roster, but I mean, 30 minutes, 6 points, 4 rebounds, and a block. I mean, at least he gives you blocks, but yeah, he's pretty much doing Dorian Finney-Smith type of lines and just not that consistent. Jamal Murray's been out for, I think, 5 games in a row, almost 6 for an ankle injury.
I thought it was a knee.
Oh, is it knee?
Yeah, it's
a knee inflammation. Knee. Okay.
Yes.
My fault on that.
No worries.
So yeah, that's why I gotta go check on the Roto World app, man. I would have known that. But either way, he's been missing time. This has been Bruce Brown's show, pretty much being the playmaker outside of Jokic. Any other fantasy impact of that you can see?
Well, not really. Maybe we've seen a little bit more of Ish Smith coming off the bench. So I don't know if he gets enough run to be worth adding in, say, standard leagues, but deep leagues, if you need assists, he's not going to turn the ball over either. So maybe you consider that, but I don't think he's a must add. And obviously the Reggie Jackson addition just happened. So we don't know what his role is going to look like there. So right. Bruce Brown, if he's available, you get him, but he probably shouldn't be available.
Right. Yeah. If anything, it'd probably be some shallow leagues. Got an update on Steven Adams. What do we know more? Can we avoid this carousel of Santi Aldama, Xavier Tillman, Brandon Clark? Like, save us, Steven Adams.
Yeah. Grizzlies coach Taylor Jenkins said on Tuesday that he's doing a little bit more on-court work. I'm still looking at 1 to 2 weeks out from a return. The initial expectation was, say, early March for Adams to return to game action. So I think he's on course in that regard. So until then, we're kind of stuck with Xavier Tillman starting at center, but Brandon Clark and even Santi Aldama have been better fantasy options than Tillman right now these days.
Yeah, right. A little bit more versatility there. Hope to get some updates on KD. I mean, it looks like he'll be returning after the All-Star break. And Steph Curry, he's already still into his month timeline, so still got to wait that out a little bit more. Haven't really got much on OG. Unfortunately, or Kevin Porter Jr. He's still out indefinitely. Cat, I think there's definitely risk of him not coming back until the fantasy playoffs. So Kyle Anderson, keep him rostered everywhere because he's going to be a great player to hold on to. And Yusuf Nurkic, think he's going to be reevaluated sometime after this All-Star break. So Drew Eubanks and maybe Trendon Watford still get some kind of hope here, but I don't know, this Portland Trailblazers team's shaking it up a little bit. So no guarantee there. All right, real quick, let's go through the schedule. That's pretty much the schedule. There's a bunch of games tonight and tomorrow, and then they're off from Thursday to the following Thursday. So we'll have more next week. We'll provide, who we're picking up ahead of that weekend to kind of close out week 18, because week 18 is 2 weeks. So make sure you plan accordingly there. But while we're talking about it, you should still probably get some kind of fantasy advice from us. I saw that Emmanuel Quickly is still under 50% rostered. He's right at the cusp at 48. That needs to change because I don't think he's getting out of the rotation. If anything, Quentin Grimes is the one that's been the sacrificial lamb by Josh Hart coming over. Terrence Mann, we already talked about. Josh Okogie, we already talked about. Malachi Branham, do you like him rest of the season?
I do. Trent has been kind of up and he's been out largely. He came back for a game and was back out again. This is an opportunity for Branham to play more on the ball. He did a little bit of both while at Ohio State during his one season there. So I think Malachi Branham, definitely like him in San Antonio for the rest of the season in terms of his value, because even after Jones is healthy, they kind of know what they've got there. In terms of Branham, we don't really know what the full scope of his potential is. So these will be good opportunities for him to get those minutes. Yeah,
and no update on Devin Vassell, so I think he's definitely good for minutes, and with Josh Richardson also being gone. Also want to throw out, we already mentioned Josh Green, already talked about Chris Boucher a little bit. Kevon Looney has been really good at rebounding, so if you need a center that can give you those boards, maybe an occasional block with really good field goal percentage and never turns over the ball, give a look at Kevon Looney. Grant Williams, I think, is also going to be a player that is going to get a lot of time here as Jaylen Brown's still working his way back. Tatum getting these random rest days. Sam Hauser, the three-point specialist, dropping bombs, running ISO plays at the end of the game to tie it up. I don't know how much he's going to have fantasy relevancy once everyone's healthy, but if you need a three-point guy, he might be a look. And then also I want to talk about Dante DiVincenzo. Do you think that he's going to have some holding power, staying power here with Steph still on the shelf?
Oh, yeah, for sure. He's one of their better defenders. In addition to what he can give offensively, he's not going to be a flashy scorer or anything like that. He's a good versatile piece for them to have. And you're talking about a team that they're probably going to need him on the court a bit more while Steph is out, just because they need to do better defensively. I think they're a middle of the pack defensive team right now. And given where they are in the Western Conference standings, that isn't good enough. So I think DiVincenzo is a good pickup right now if he's still available in your league.
Yeah, he had a great game in their win over it's blanking on it. Who are they playing?
The Wizards, right? Was it the Wizards?
Yes, it was the Wizards. Yeah, their home win. Yeah, that was a good game for DiVincenzo. And then they went to the Clippers and stunk it up.
Yeah.
Which is pretty much par of the course for the Warriors this year. They just can't play on the road whatsoever. All right, so then we got thoughts on All-Star Weekend here. Really quickly, Karl Malone, we're not going to spend too much time on it, but the NBA decided to have Karl Malone as a judge for a dunk contest. Number one, this guy is probably the wackest dunker ever. Like, all right, cool. He's got his signature little mailman thing, but like, all right. But then other side, he's like just an awful human being. So shame on you, NBA. I don't know why you thought that was a good idea. Your thoughts, Raph? You could probably say a lot worse than me.
Daryl Griffith, who went by the nickname of Dr. Duncanstein, was the first star of the Utah Jazz era. He's still around. He's still healthy. Looks in great shape. The last time I saw him, things at a Louisville event. He's on TV or something like that. Why not have him be one of the judges for the dunk contest? Sometimes the most recent name isn't always the best name. And I think this is a situation in which they could have done better here. I wish Daryl Griffith would have been the pick.
Yeah, man, I would have rather even put Adrian Dantley in the conversation. I mean, he had a really solid stint there. I don't know. They had Jeff Hornacek. I don't know. He wasn't a dunker, but just go with another option.
About Dantley, if Isaiah Thomas is a judge, they probably couldn't do that. So
that's very true. Great call on that. So there's a bit of an all-star format change. Want to know your thoughts on it? The teams aren't going to be selected until Sunday, so they're not really going to know who they're playing with. Do you think that that's cool? Is that a fun little wrinkle that they added, or do you think it's stupid?
I think it's cool. I'm sure people who are big on like waste management and use of textiles and making jerseys may not be too thrilled with it, but I think it brings like that playground feel to it where you're on the court just standing around picking up sides. It's going to stink being the last pick because this is happening in front of 20,000 people in the arena and then millions watching on TV, as opposed to them having the captains on a call. But I think it's a really cool idea.
Yeah, I think it is too, man. I like that the NBA continues to innovate and try new things, being that the slam dunk competition isn't what it used to be. The Elam ending is still like perfect. Like that's the only way to make it competitive. I wish the Pro Bowl could figure out something along these lines because that product just sucks.
They shouldn't even have one.
That's also
seriously. They
if you're doing flag football, you might as well just not even do it.
No, you hit each other for like 8 months out of a year. I'm not hitting anybody in an exhibition. That would just be my fault.
Yeah, exactly. No incentive to do it. I'm really excited to see Scoot Henderson in the Rising Stars. Yes. I haven't gotten a chance to watch too much of the G League Ignite games. They're on at weird hours, but yeah, I'm really excited to see him. I like that format too. That there's going to be some really cool talent and players that we can see from around the world really showcase here that don't really get the shine that they do in the regular season. So really excited about that. How about you?
Yeah, I think Scoot's going to be the main headliner, obviously. There's only so much you can say from a Rising Stars challenge. I do like the way that they changed it up where you have 3 teams playing, so there's more playing time to go around. But yeah, Scoot Henderson, he's the guy I'm looking forward to seeing out there on Friday night.
And to close out, I want to get your predictions for the dunk contest. You got KJ Martin, Trey Murphy III, Jericho Sims, and Mac McClung, the recently signed Mac McClung to the 76ers. Who you got?
I go with my guy Jericho Sims. I'll be biased on this one.
Okay, New York. I'm going to go with KJ Martin, but I feel like I'm going to lose this bet because he's like an in-game dunker. Like I don't know that he's going to have the creativity to really do it, but I think that that's probably the favorite pick. But I just can't deny it, man. That guy just dunks so viciously. I can't wait to see him do it. Really want to see Shaden Sharp in there with him, but things happen. Mac McClung, sneaky hops too. So curious to see how he does. In 3-point, we got Halliburton, Tyler Hero, Buddy Hield, Kevin Huerter, Damian Lillard, Lauri Markkanen, Anthony Simons, we'll see, and Jason Tatum. Who you taking 3-point?
I'm going to go with Buddy Hield. First off, we don't know who all is going to be there. Like he mentioned, Simons, Tyler Hero's been dealing with a knee injury.
Right.
So you've got a couple guys who are a bit banged up. I expect Jason Tatum to be out there. But yeah, I'm going to go with Buddy Hield. That's pretty much what his job is with the Pacers. Shoot 3-pointers. So I think someone like Dame would be fun if this were a distance competition. I think there's one rack that's a bit further out, so maybe he sweeps that one. But overall, I'm going with Buddy Hield.
Wise choice. The former, I think he won in 2020. So, former winner can clearly do it again. I'm going to take a dark horse. I'm going to go with Kevin Huerter. I don't know why. I just feel like this might be a time where the redhead's just going to surprise me. Like, yo, who is this white boy that's just draining threes with his headband? I'm going to ride with Huerter on this one. We'll see how it goes. But that'll do it for Roundball Stew. Thanks for everybody for watching in on Twitch. Make sure you check back with us 1 p.m. Eastern time every Wednesday. And Raph, good luck with AC Milan. Got that dub last night.
That's right.
But I hope everyone enjoys All-Star Weekend. It's a really fun weekend. Make sure you lock in, tune in, and we'll see you next week.